So we are back for part two of our conversation with Father Andrew Reinholz. Father Andrew, we continue to be excited about your coming to Good Shepherd, your first Sunday on March 20th. How are things going with preparing for the move and getting ready?
We're very excited too. It's a bit of a whirlwind right now. Very quick turnaround for us. But we're just very eager to get that process not started, completed, and arrive in Pittman and start settling into the rectory and into the school and into the church and just into the new life there.
Great. Well, we took your advice. We've all been praying for you and the family these last couple of weeks, and since the big news came out. So you have that going for you.
We
So we
appreciate
do have some questions. So thank you to everyone who sent in questions, um, and we'll go through these and see where we land. All right,
great.
here we go. So one question that we got from a few different people, and I combined them into one question. So, what can we expect from you from the pulpit? Like, will you make your sermons relevant to today's world and the current issues in the country and the world?
Yeah. And this is a question that every preacher gets asked a lot.
Sure.
So one I'm happy to answer. For me, all my sermons, in terms of the preparation for them, they begin and end in prayer. It's a prayerful act for me. And my main focus and source is Scripture, and especially the Gospel. Um, but certainly what's going on in the world, in our local community, in the national life, that will inform things and certainly be a part of my thinking and my prayer and issues I want to address. But what I have found in my uh, career preaching is that when we let the gospel speak and just let it speak on its own terms, it's going to speak to the current situation in the current world. Um, I believe the gospel is just as empowering and challenging today as it was to the people who first heard it 2,000 years ago. And I've always been amazed sometimes at, I'm trying to think of a good example. Last time I preached on the Good Samaritan, when that came up in the lectionary, I had so many people coming up to me talking about how important it was that they heard the sermon, and especially with the current climate at the time around certain issues in the country. And the most contemporary thing I quoted was Martin Luther King. I didn't say
Mhm.
anything about anything in the present day. I just let the gospel, or I tried to just let the gospel speak, and people heard it speaking to their current thoughts and feelings on certain issues. And so I think that happens more often than not. If we engage with the gospel faithfully, it is going to speak to us about the issues today. It's going to inform us about the issues today. And that's one of the joys and challenges of the Christian faith, is then responding to that. So yes, I do think contemporary issues and concerns do come up. Um, just as the gospel has brought them up throughout its history.
Mhm. Great, thanks. Our next question, a little bit close to home for me, maybe, and Lori. We talk a lot about the youth and how important they are. Of course, they are. Uh, but how about a little older? How about young adults who are just making their way in the world? They're in college or just starting out in their careers. How might we reach them and keep them as part of our community?
Sure. Well, I think two things kind of come to mind. The first is, I would want to talk to them. Just first, kind of start off with a conversation. I'm sure that when the experience of going to college now is very different than when I went to college back in the 2000s, and going to college during a pandemic is certainly very different than other college experiences. So I would want to just hear from people who are in college, who are transitioning out of college. What are the challenges they're facing? What are the fears? What are the joys? What are they looking for? What do they need? Let them kind of tell us um, and kind of start off with a conversation and some dialogue. But I think also, and this really kind of goes with any ministry, we also have to start off with the mindset of let the church be the church. You know, we're not a social club. We're not just a nonprofit that does charity work. After entering into that conversation, well, let's look for the ways that the church can be the church to them, of building a faithful community, of enriching all aspects of their life, um, helping them to be better disciples of Jesus Christ. And that can take on so many different forms and so many different patterns. Just thinking to my wife's own ministry, who did
Mhm.
college chaplaincy work here in Richmond. They started a weekly, I think it was Wednesday nights, a compline on Zoom, and this little community really formed around it, and it gave them a safe space of touching base with the community. Everyone kind of brought what their prayer concerns were, what their needs were, and they were all able to hold that all together and support each other, you know, in this kind of digital space through prayer. Um, so that's just one example. People who are in college probably don't really want to do it like another book study, but they still might be hungry for some Bible study and something like Ignatian contemplation, which is much more about how we respond to the gospel and kind of this imaginative interpretation by trying to insert yourself into the gospel story and narrative. That might actually be a nice break for a college student to kind of go on a journey with the gospel instead of studying it like an academic discipline. I mean, there's so many different ways to approach it, but yeah, first and foremost, just hear from them and
Mhm.
find out what the church can offer.
Yeah, I think creating that platform or creating that avenue to foster those conversations can be really important. Yeah, that's great. All right, here's a shorter one, maybe. What's your favorite Bible passage, or what's your favorite hymn?
Excuse me. Yeah, for hymns, "What Wondrous Love Is This" is a particular favorite. Let all mortal flesh be silent. And of course, I went to General Seminary, so General Seminary always pulls at the heartstrings. For Bible passage, it's hard to beat John's prologue. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. That is just such a rich text that you can always come back to and really kind of hunker down in and explore. But I've also found in my ministry too, we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, has really informed my understanding of what the church is, the community that is formed. Um,
Mhm.
and I especially through the sacraments of the church, um, through communion, through baptism, I have a sense of the presence of this larger church that kind of um, is the members of the church who aren't with us physically, who are kind of spread across the world right now, but also through time. I feel that great cloud of witnesses are the Christians who have come before us and the Christians who will come after us. The prayers and sacraments of the church are a way of that cloud kind of being made
Mhm.
manifest, and so that's always been a real kind of touchstone for my understanding of ministry and the church itself.
I love it. I was gonna say you can't say you love all of them, so you certainly didn't. So
Yeah.
thank you for that. What's your do you have a favorite part of a Sunday service or a favorite service like throughout the year that speaks to you?
um, well, I think in a Sunday service, certainly the Eucharist and the Eucharistic prayer, I've always found it to be a real powerful experience, even from a young age. And one of the interesting things during this pandemic is, here in Virginia, we called it fasting from the Eucharist. This kind of self-imposed fasting,
Right.
um, and I really felt its absence, and it was really quite remarkable how many conversations I had with parishioners who were feeling its absence and the loss of it. So that's just kind of driven home how important I find it. So that's a highlight on a Sunday, every Sunday when we have it. And hopefully, it's not going to go anywhere now again. As far as like an individual service, well, we just had Ash Wednesday, which I always found to be a real beautiful service, and a really unique service. In kind of contemporary life. This kind of ties into that preaching question. Um, I'm always struck by what Ash Wednesday is asking us to do about being self-reflective and being fully admitting of our sin and our faults, which is not something that modern contemporary life really does a lot of.
Mhm.
And so to actually kind of have that in a communal space and for it to be so poetically done, I'm always struck by.
Great. All right. Now we have some more uh, uh, well, I've lost my train of thought here. More casual questions, let's just say. All right, what is your favorite movie? Why?
Um, that's a hard one. Now I could probably list off several, but if I had to pick one, the Coen Brothers' "No Country for Old Men" is a real favorite of mine. It's
Okay.
not it's not a real upbeat, happy movie, but
No, it's not.
yeah, it's got amazing actors and it's just so well made, and it's got two of my favorite kind of monologues in it with Tommy Lee Jones' character. There's one, it's there towards the end of the movie, but one scene where he goes to see a relative and they just have this amazing exchange, and another one where he's relating a dream he had, and the themes that they're talking about in there about kind of confronting evil and what it means to try to be a good man in the face of evil. And every time I watch those movies, I'm just struck by the whole thing, but those in particular. um
Mhm.
but yeah, I could go on for an hour listing movies that I could consider favorites.
All right, I see a movie club in our future, maybe.
Well, that's
I don't
actually
know.
something COVID kind of derailed, but I had started a faith and film series, which is something I would be interested in trying to get back up and running. Watching movies and talking about the themes of faith and belief that can be found in them. And you'd be
Excellent.
surprised. I think there's some interesting stuff in No Country for Old Men about
Mhm.
faith.
All right, I'll bring the popcorn.
Great.
So if you could plan a trip anywhere for you, Mother Kim, Audrey, and Owen, where would you go? What would you do?
That's actually something we've been talking about. When Owen's a little bit older, we want to do one of our first kind of family getaways. We've been talking about going up to Quebec, and the idea being it would be international travel.
Hmm.
The kids would get to hear another language, but it would still be fairly familiar and easy to navigate. And we just like the idea. I was fortunate. My stepfather uh, is a soon to be retired college professor, and he used to lead study tours. And so, not every summer, but many summers growing up, I got to go along on those study tours he would lead. And so, travel is something is a gift I want to give to my kids, and international travel, especially, see other people and cultures firsthand. So that's one we've talked about. That would be a nice, like, dipping the toe in for the
Hmm.
kids to experience another country.
That's great. Go during hockey season, maybe. I don't
Maybe, yeah, maybe catch a
know.
Flyers game up there.
Who's someone, past or present, that you have found to be a special inspiration in your life, or maybe for how they overcame obstacles, or just provided a good example?
Um, well, there's not one person that comes to mind right now, but rather I'd like to speak towards so many people I've been amazed and impressed by throughout this 2 years of the pandemic. I think
Mm.
about when this started. My daughter's in second grade. It started when she was in kindergarten. The kindergarten teacher who just got told, hey, you're now going to teach a class of kindergartners over the computers with this software you've never used. And kindergartners like my daughter who did their best. And I could just go on and on about people who were thrown into the most uh, unprecedented, unexpected situations and rose to the occasion. Um, I think we could probably all think about people in our lives, either professionally, from or personally, family wise, um, that just stepped up to the moment, and for 2 years, just seemed to have the weight of the world on their shoulders. So, as difficult and as hard as this pandemic has been, I think when we stop and look back on it, there are a lot of amazing moments and instances and things that occurred that hopefully can be remembered and built upon.
I hope we do. There's been, yeah, a lot of inspirational moments along the way. Uh, yeah, I really like that. All right, so this may, I hope you get to do some of this week. I know you're really busy and got a lot coming on with the move, but when you want to unwind and power off for a few minutes, what do you do to relax?
Well, music's always been a big thing in my life, and putting some music on, whether it's some rock and roll or some jazz or classical, whatever kind of mood you're in, we always tend to have music on in the house. And so sitting down and listening to some music, having it in the background just to kind of change the mood and the energy, help to relax, is a big one. And I do love walking and hiking. I find just that kind of getting out, moving, getting into a nice rhythm, especially if you can take a nice hike and get into nature and just kind of unplug and kind of clear your head and not have a lot of stimulus and distractions, can be a great way to relax. And of course, I was talking about movies. I do love watching movies, and reading a good book.
Awesome. Well, as you know, Pittman, very walkable town.
Yes.
Lots of parks around for you to clear your head if
Yeah.
needed when you get here. All right. Well, this was great. As I said, we know you're very busy getting things ready for the move. We're really looking forward to seeing you all when you come up here. And thanks again for taking the time to talk to me.
Of course. Well, thank you too for making the time. And yes, just keep us in your prayers. And like I said, if I'm a little dazed and confused when I first get there, just know how happy and excited I am, and just honored to have been called as your rector, and just really looking forward to meeting everyone and beginning our work together.
Good stuff. All right. Thank you, Father Andrew. Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.